Sit down, Karen. You are a reliable operational caretaker, but you just do not have modern visionary leadership. CEO Gerald Thorne dropped those words onto the glass boardroom table like an insult wrapped in silk. It was a cold, rainy Friday morning at Kodiak Logistics. Outside the high-floor windows, the city was covered in gray fog. Inside, 30 senior executives sat in dead silence. I was sitting near the head of the long oak table, right where I had earned the right to sit. For 15 years, I had built the operational backbone of this company from the ground up. I had sacrificed my weekends, my evenings, and my personal life to ensure every single shipment moved without a delay. Everyone in that room knew today was supposed to be the day Gerald officially announced my promotion to Vice President of Global Accounts. I had cleared every metric, beaten every target, and carried this firm through 3 major supply chain crises. Instead, Gerald stood at the front of the room with a wide, artificial smile. He gestured toward the young man standing beside him. It is my absolute pleasure to introduce our new Vice President of Global Accounts, Mason Thorne. A quiet gasp ran through the room. Mason was 28 years old. He was Gerald's nephew. He had graduated from business school 6 months ago with a fresh MBA and had exactly 0 days of real-world logistics experience. He stood there wearing an expensive, tailored suit, looking around the room like a king who had just been handed an empire he did not build. Gerald turned his cold eyes toward me. Karen, we deeply appreciate your 15 years of steady work. But the world is moving fast. You have been a wonderful operational caretaker, but caretakers maintain the past. Mason brings visionary leadership. He understands where the future is going. Mason stepped forward, smoothing his tie, and looked directly down at me. He did not even attempt to hide his arrogant smile. Thank you, Gerald, Mason said, his voice dripping with condescension. I am excited to take Kodiak to the next level. Frankly, when I looked over our current operational structure, I saw a lot of outdated, overly dramatic methods. Karen has done fine for her era, but we are going to replace these slow, human-heavy processes with modern automated software. By Monday, we begin streamlining. A few executives shifted uncomfortably in their chairs. No one dared to speak up. I sat perfectly still, feeling the sharp, burning sting of public humiliation. My hands rested flat against the smooth wood of the table. 30 pairs of eyes were locked on my face, waiting to see if I would cry, shout, or make a scene. I did neither. I took a slow, quiet breath and let the insult settle into my chest. In that exact second, something fundamental inside me shifted forever. The warm, fierce loyalty I had carried for 15 years instantly died. I realized that to Gerald and his spoiled nephew, my 15 years of sweat and dedication were completely worthless. They saw a quiet, middle-aged woman whom they could easily step over to enrich their own family. As Mason continued to talk about his revolutionary digital ideas, a cold, crystal-clear realization washed over me. Mason thought he was taking over a smooth, simple system that ran on autopilot. He thought the empire ran on numbers and spreadsheets. He had no idea how fragile the company's actual operations really were. And more importantly, he had no idea what was about to happen when I stopped holding it all together. My name is Karen Albright. I am 46 years old, and for 15 years I was the invisible pulse of Kodiak Logistics. When my husband passed away 11 years ago, I was left alone with 2 young children, a heavy mortgage, and a heart full of grief. I did not have the luxury of giving up. I threw myself into my work at Kodiak, grinding through 60-hour workweeks, learning every port rule, every freight line contract, and every single wrinkle of international trade law. I earned every penny that paid off my house, put my kids through college, and kept my family safe. I sacrificed my health and my personal life to turn Kodiak from a small regional delivery business into a national logistics power. The executive board thought our success came from clever corporate branding and high-level strategy. They were completely wrong. The financial reality of Kodiak Logistics was far simpler and much more exclusive. The entire empire rested on our enterprise client division. We had over 200 standard customers, but those smaller accounts barely covered our daily office overhead. The real heart of the company was 31 major enterprise clients. These 31 corporate giants generated more than 78% of Kodiak's total annual revenue. They were massive manufacturing conglomerates, global retail chains, and international medical supply firms. If even 2 or 3 of those 31 clients left, Kodiak would begin bleeding cash immediately. If all 31 vanished, Kodiak would crumble into bankruptcy within 48 hours. And what Gerald Thorne and his arrogant nephew never understood was why those 31 clients stayed with us. They did not stay because of Gerald's grand speeches. They did not stay because of Kodiak's shiny corporate office or high-tech website. They stayed because of me. Over 15 years, I had personally built an unbreakable web of trust with the top decision-makers at every single one of those 31 accounts. I knew their chief operating officers by their first names. I knew their children's birthdays, their port preferences, and their exact supply chain nightmares. More importantly, international logistics is a chaotic, unpredictable world. Weather strikes, port closures, customs delays, and dock strikes happen every single day. The official corporate handbook at Kodiak contained slow, rigid protocols that took 48 hours just to clear a simple customs clearance issue. To fix these delays, I had built 31 custom manual workarounds over the past decade. These were specific, highly specialized emergency routing protocols, personal direct lines to Port Authority directors, and private agreements with local freight yards. When a cargo ship got stuck off the coast of California, the corporate software would freeze. But I would make 3 quick phone calls on my private cell phone, sign a custom clearance override, and move $50 million worth of goods past the blockage before morning. The chief operating officers of those 31 companies did not call Kodiak's official customer service line when an emergency hit. They did not use the central ticketing portal. They called my private mobile phone at 2 in the morning on Sunday and I always answered. Gerald and Mason looked at the financial spreadsheets every month and saw millions of dollars flowing smoothly into Kodiak's bank accounts. They assumed the money generated itself through standard automated systems. They were completely blind to the massive human infrastructure, the endless personal relationships, and the quiet manual labor I performed every single day behind the scenes. They thought they were taking away my title. They had no idea that they were stripping away the only safety net keeping their entire empire from falling off a cliff. On Monday morning, Mason Thorne officially moved into the corner executive office on the top floor. It was a massive room with floor-to-ceiling windows, imported leather chairs, and a brand new espresso machine that cost more than my first car. He did not spend his first day learning how our freight routes worked or studying international shipping laws. Instead, he called an emergency meeting with my operational team. I walked into the conference room with my notebook sitting quietly near the back. Mason stood at the head of the room with a glass of sparkling water in his hand. On the screen behind him was a single brightly colored slide with big bold letters that read, "Efficiency and Cost Reduction." "Starting today," Mason announced, pacing back and forth with supreme confidence, "we are completely modernizing the way Kodiak interacts with clients. The old way of doing things is dead. We are abolishing Karen's personalized account management model immediately." My team looked at me in shock, but I kept my face entirely calm. Mason continued, pointing at his slide. "We spend far too many human hours answering phone calls, handling direct emails, and custom routing shipments. Moving forward, all 31 enterprise accounts will use our new automated offshore ticketing portal. If a client has a problem with a shipping container in Tokyo or a port delay in Rotterdam, they will log into the web portal, submit a digital support ticket, and wait for an automated response within 24 business hours." I raised my hand quietly. Mason looked annoyed that I had interrupted his speech, but he nodded for me to speak. "Mason," I said, keeping my voice soft and measured so everyone could hear, "our 31 enterprise clients do not use web portals. They pay us premium rates specifically because they have direct 24/7 access to senior operational leaders. When a cargo vessel carrying $50 million in perishable goods gets held up at port compliance, a 24-hour digital ticket will cost those clients millions of dollars in fines. They demand instant human intervention and custom clearance overrides." Mason let out a loud, patronizing laugh that echoed off the glass walls. He shook his head like I was a small child who did not understand how the world worked. Karen," he said with a condescending smirk. "That is the exact outdated mindset that has kept this company stuck in the past. You think what you do is complex rocket science. It isn't. Anyone with an iPad can manage shipping lanes. You built a complicated, dramatic web of manual workarounds just to make yourself feel important and protect an empire of redundant employees." He turned back to the room. Effective immediately, I am cutting the client operations budget by 40%. We are eliminating 4 senior operational support roles. That money will be reallocated toward modernizing executive leadership facilities and upgrading our digital branding software. The room went cold. Mason was cutting the very staff who monitored emergency port flags at night. The funds he cut were immediately used to buy himself a brand new corporate car allowance and remodel his executive suite. To make matters worse, Mason called me into his office an hour later. He did not offer me a chair. "Karen," he said, staring at his phone while he talked to me. "Since we are streamlining your role, your main responsibility for the next few weeks will be training 2 new entry-level college hires. They will take over your routine daily paperwork while you focus on basic data entry." He was handing my 15 years of hard-won responsibilities to 2 22-year-old kids who did not even know the difference between a bill of lading and a port manifest. I did not argue. I did not raise my voice. I simply said, "Understood, Mason." Over the next 2 weeks, I watched Mason's foolish decisions create invisible friction across our entire supply chain. Small delays began to pile up. Port authorities sent warning notices that were routed to unmonitored digital ticket queues. The system was cracking, but Mason was too busy congratulating himself to notice the quiet storm gathering on the horizon. The tension reached its ultimate breaking point during our quarterly executive review meeting at the end of the month. The entire corporate board, along with CEO Gerald Thorne, sat around the large table. Mason was giving a grand slide presentation about his first 30 days as vice president. He clicked to a slide displaying a massive financial logo. It was Apex Manufacturing, our largest single client, responsible for nearly 12% of our entire company revenue. "As you can see," Mason announced proudly, chest puffed out, "under my new visionary leadership, we have successfully renewed our contract with Apex Manufacturing for another 3 years, securing millions in guaranteed revenue." I stared at him in disbelief. 2 months ago, long before Mason ever stepped foot in this building, Apex Manufacturing was ready to cancel their agreement due to a massive ocean line backlog. I had personally flown out to meet their chief operating officer, worked 80 hours straight, rerouted their entire supply chain through secondary rail lines, and saved that account with my own hands. Mason had literally done nothing except put his signature on the final contract that I had spent months preparing. Yet here he was taking total public credit for my blood, sweat, and tears in front of the board. Then Mason clicked to his next slide, which covered international port compliance. As he began speaking, my heart dropped. He was explaining a new routing protocol he had personally forced onto our cargo routes in Europe to save money. "Mason," I interrupted softly, keeping my tone respectful. "If you route our European containers through that specific terminal without manual customs pre-clearance documents, those ships will be flagged instantly under European maritime compliance laws. They will sit locked at the dock and we will be hit with massive daily holding fees." Mason's face flushed bright red with anger. He hated being corrected, especially when he was wrong. Gerald Thorne slammed his hand down on the wooden table, making the glass coffee cups rattle. He glared across the room directly at me, his eyes filled with rage. "That is enough, Karen." Gerald barked harshly, his voice echoing through the silent boardroom. "You have done nothing but resist progress since Mason arrived. You are jealous, bitter, and unwilling to adapt to modern methods. Know your place in this company or find somewhere else to work. Mason is the vice president, and his authority is absolute." 30 senior leaders looked down at their laps. No one said a word to defend me. I sat there in silence, feeling the heavy, cold weight of their total disrespect. At 4 o'clock that afternoon, Mason walked into my small office. Without saying a word, he dropped a piece of paper onto my desk. It was my formal annual performance review. He had rated my work as unsatisfactory, writing that I was resistant to modern corporate growth. Because of this review, my annual performance bonus, the money I relied on to pay my remaining property taxes and fund my savings, was completely slashed to 0. "Consider this a wake-up call, Karen," Mason said coldly before walking out. I sat alone in my office as the evening sun faded behind the clouds. I looked at the review paper. Then I looked at the framed photo on my desk of my 2 children, now happy and independent adults. For 15 years I had destroyed my sleep, my stress levels, and my health to protect Kodiak Logistics. Whenever Gerald or the board made a mistake, I was the human shield who fixed it in the middle of the night so they could look good. I had protected them from their own stupidity for over a decade. And this was my reward. Being publicly humiliated, stripped of my pay, and talked to like trash by an arrogant kid who had never worked a hard day in his life. A deep, peaceful sense of calm suddenly came over me. The pain vanished, replaced by complete clarity. I realized that staying and constantly fixing their mistakes would only destroy my life while enriching the very people who degraded me. They wanted to run the company without me? They wanted to rely on automated systems and Mason's visionary leadership? Then I would let them. I pulled up my human resources portal on my computer screen. I had 4 weeks of unused, accrued vacation time saved up. I submitted a formal vacation request for the upcoming week, starting Monday morning. Then I typed out a short, professional 2-sentence formal resignation letter, effective Friday afternoon at 5 p.m. I printed it out, signed it in blue ink, and placed it quietly in an envelope on Mason's empty desk. I packed my personal belongings into a small cardboard box. I did not cry. I did not yell. I did not make a scene. I walked out of the corporate doors on Friday evening with my head held high, knowing that by Monday morning reality was coming for them. During my final hours on Friday afternoon, I ensured my exit was completely legal, professional, and flawless. I was not driven by blind rage, and I had no desire to break any laws. I did not delete company databases. I did not sabotage server networks, and I did not steal any proprietary corporate property. Doing any of those things would be illegal and foolish. Instead, I simply restored the company's daily operations to the exact official state that corporate leadership had demanded. For 15 years, I had kept Kodiak Logistics running using my own personal resources, my private industry contacts, and unwritten manual workarounds that existed only in my head and on my personal notepad. Whenever an official corporate system failed, I had stepped in with my private safety net to protect the company from its own foolish policies. Today, I simply removed my personal safety net and stepped out of the way. First, I went into our central operational system directory. For years, my personal mobile phone number had been listed as the primary contact for all 31 enterprise accounts during nights, weekends, and holidays. I updated the central file, removing my personal mobile number entirely. In its place, I inserted Vice President Mason Thorne's personal direct cell line and CEO Gerald Thorne's private executive phone line, exactly as official corporate protocol dictated for top-tier executive leadership. Next, I reviewed our active international shipping files. Over the years, I had created custom routing procedures for our major clients to bypass slow government inspection points and severe port bottlenecks. These custom instructions were not official company policy. They were personal workarounds I performed out of my own operational skill and goodwill. I quietly archived my personal work notes and reverted all account routing procedures strictly back to Kodiak's official corporate handbook, the exact outdated 48-hour automated ticketing process that Mason had proudly insisted upon in front of the entire staff. Then I turned my attention to the executive leaders of those 31 enterprise accounts. These were men and women I had worked with for over a decade. They had trusted me with their supply chains, and I owed them the professional courtesy of a clear, honest goodbye before I closed this chapter of my life. At 4:30 p.m., I drafted a single, perfectly formatted email. I sent it directly to the personal email addresses of the chief operating officers and global supply chain directors of all 31 major enterprise accounts. The email was brief, polite, and completely professional. Dear valued partner, after 15 years of dedicated service as Senior Director of Client Operations at Kodiak Logistics, I am writing to inform you that I have officially resigned, effective today at 5 p.m. It has been a true honor managing your operations and protecting your global supply chains over the past decade. Please note that moving forward, my personal mobile line will no longer be active for Kodiak business. For all future operational needs, account management, and urgent emergency port clearance issues, please direct your inquiries directly to our new Vice President of Global Accounts, Mason Thorne, or our CEO, Gerald Thorne. I attached Mason's personal cell phone number and Gerald's direct executive office line right below my signature block. I hit send. Within seconds, my email inbox began to flash with incoming messages. My phone started buzzing on my desk every few seconds. Executive directors from massive international corporations were trying to reach me, completely shocked and confused by the sudden announcement. But I did not answer. My official time with Kodiak Logistics was over. I neatly packed my small cardboard box with my personal desk items, my family photos, my favorite coffee mug, and my desk calendar. I cleared my personal browser history, turned off my monitor, and placed my official company keycard flat on the center of my clean, empty desk. I checked my watch. It was exactly 5 o'clock on Friday afternoon. I walked down the quiet hallway past Mason's empty executive office, and rode the elevator down to the parking garage for the very last time. I felt no anger, no panic, and no regret. I walked out of the building with absolute composure and complete peace of mind. I was legally clean, completely untraceable to any operational fault, and entirely free. I had spent 15 years building their empire, and now I was going to sit back and watch them try to run it all by themselves. On Monday morning the weather was bright, warm, and beautiful. At 8 o'clock I was sitting at a sunny outdoor cafe 3 blocks from the beach, enjoying a hot cup of black tea and a fresh blueberry pastry. I wore comfortable civilian clothes, feeling the morning sun on my face. For the first time in 15 years, I did not have a buzzing work phone sitting next to my plate. I was on my official accrued vacation week, completely detached from the corporate world. 5 miles away, inside the glass towers of Kodiak Logistics, absolute pandemonium was erupting. Over the weekend, a massive international shipping crisis had struck 3 primary global ports: Los Angeles, Rotterdam, and Singapore. A combination of unexpected ocean weather delays and sudden customs system updates had frozen thousands of freight containers worldwide. Hundreds of those stalled containers belonged directly to Kodiak's 31 major enterprise clients. Under Kodiak's official corporate protocol, the exact system Mason had restored, the automated portal immediately locked up. Automated red warning emails triggered across the network, notifying client systems that their shipments were officially delayed by up to 72 hours. 4 massive manufacturing plants and international retail chains, a 72-hour delay is an absolute nightmare. It meant assembly lines shutting down, retail shelves sitting empty, and millions of dollars in contractual penalty fines piling up every single hour. Naturally, the chief operating officers of all 31 enterprise accounts did what they had always done for 10 years. They reached for their phones to call me. When they dialed my personal mobile number, they did not hear my voice. They heard a calm, automated voicemail message informing them that I was no longer employed by Kodiak Logistics, and directing them to contact Vice President Mason Thorne or CO Gerald Thorne. By 8:30 a.m., Mason's personal cell phone began ringing every 10 seconds. When Mason walked into his lavish corner office at 9 o'clock, holding his morning espresso, his phone was already melting down. He had over 40 missed calls, 60 urgent text messages, and a flood of high-priority emails marked with red flags. Panic instantly set in. Mason had no idea what was happening. He opened his laptop and logged into the central portal, but the screen was covered in complex port compliance error codes he had never seen before in his life. He did not know what a port manifest clearance override was. He did not know how to contact the port authorities in Rotterdam or Singapore. He did not have the private mobile numbers of the dock directors who could clear the containers manually. He tried to use his automated offshore ticketing portal, but the portal simply generated generic auto-reply tickets stating that response times were currently 24 to 48 hours. By 10 o'clock, the situation had escalated into full-blown corporate warfare. The chief operating officer of Apex Manufacturing, our largest client, managed to get through to Mason's direct line. He was screaming so loudly that people standing outside Mason's glass office could hear every single word. Apex had 80 freight containers of critical raw materials stuck on a vessel off the coast, and every hour of delay was costing them $100,000. When the COO demanded that Mason issue an immediate emergency port clearance override, Mason stammered, stuttered, and nervously admitted that he did not know how to do that. "What do you mean you don't know how?" the COO roared over the phone. "Where is Karen Albright? Put Karen on the phone right now." Mason weakly replied that Karen was no longer with the company, and that he was modernizing the department through automated software. The COO slammed the phone down in pure rage. Within 2 hours, CO Gerald Thorne's private executive office was overwhelmed. Furious phone calls from industry titans, billionaires, and corporate board members were pouring in from across the country. Every single one of them was demanding to know why their shipments were frozen, why Karen Albright was gone, and who was responsible for this catastrophic failure. Mason ran into Gerald's office, pale, sweating profusely and visibly shaking. The illusion of his visionary leadership had completely shattered in less than 3 hours. Reality had arrived and Kodiak Logistics was bleeding millions of dollars by the minute. By 2 o'clock on Monday afternoon, the polished executive floor of Kodiak Logistics had completely descended into chaos. Mason Thorne was sitting behind his heavy oak desk, hyperventilating with tears streaming down his face. His expensive suit jacket was thrown across the room, and his hands were trembling as his phone continued to ring without stopping. The brilliant visionary who believed anyone with an iPad could manage global supply chains had completely broken down under the crushing weight of reality. In total panic, CEO Gerald Thorne locked himself in his office and dialed my personal mobile phone. I was sitting on my back porch listening to the birds and sipping a cold glass of lemonade when my phone vibrated. I saw Gerald's name on the caller ID. I let it ring 3 times before I answered, keeping my voice entirely cool and steady. "Hello, Gerald," I said softly. "Karen." Gerald screamed into the receiver, his voice trembling with furious panic. "Where are you? What did you do to our systems? We have containers backed up across 3 continents. Our enterprise accounts are threatening to burn this company to the ground. You need to get into this office right now and fix this mess." I took a slow sip of lemonade. "Gerald, I am on my approved vacation time. And as you know, my formal resignation took effect on Friday afternoon." "You abandoned this company," Gerald yelled, trying to regain control. "This is operational abandonment. It is sabotage. I am speaking to our corporate legal team right now. We will sue you for every penny you have, Karen. We will tie you up in court for the rest of your life." I did not flinch. I did not raise my voice. "Gerald," I said calmly, "I did not sabotage a single file. I left my desk completely clean. I followed every corporate policy in your handbook. I submitted my resignation in writing, and HR issued my final paycheck on Friday. Everything in that building is currently running on the exact automated system that your nephew insisted on using. If your modern software cannot handle international port delays, that is an operational problem for your vice president, not a former employee." Silence fell over the line. Gerald knew I was right. His legal threats were completely empty and he knew it. He had no legal standing, no leverage, and no control over me anymore. I heard him let out a long, shuddering breath. When he spoke again, his aggressive tone was completely gone. His voice sounded pathetic, broken, and desperate. "Karen, please," Gerald pleaded, his voice cracking. "I am begging you. Mason made a mistake. I made a mistake. We need you. If you come back right now, today, I will make you Vice President of Global Accounts immediately. I will give you complete authority over the department. I will double your previous salary. Name your price, Karen. Anything you want. Just please save us." I sat back in my chair looking up at the clear blue sky. 2 weeks ago I would have given my life for that promotion. But now, after seeing how quickly they discarded me, those promises meant less than nothing. "I am sorry, Gerald," I said softly. "You called me a caretaker who maintains the past. Well, I am enjoying my present. Good luck with your visionary future." I hung up the phone and blocked his number. While Gerald was desperately trying to buy me back, the chief operating officers of all 31 enterprise accounts were holding an emergency video conference. They were furious. They had spent years trusting Kodiak because of my hard work, only to discover that the firm had pushed me out to elevate an incompetent family favorite. They refused to let Mason Thorne play games with their supply chains. By 4 o'clock that afternoon, every single one of those 31 corporate giants officially exercised their emergency contractual termination clauses. Citing gross operational negligence and failure to maintain agreed service levels, all 31 clients severed their ties with Kodiak Logistics in a single afternoon. In less than 8 hours, 78% of Kodiak's total annual revenue vanished into thin air. The news sent shockwaves through the entire logistics industry. Executives from competing logistics firms could not believe how fast a giant firm had fallen. Behind the closed doors of Kodiak, the board of directors held an immediate emergency session, demanding answers for the catastrophic loss of $40 million in contracts. But the damage was already done, irreversible and total. On Tuesday morning, the chief operating officer of Apex Manufacturing called me directly. He did not ask me to fix Kodiak's problems. Instead, he made a simple proposal. He asked if I would establish my own independent logistics consultancy firm to manage their supply chains directly. Before the sun set that evening, the remaining 30 enterprise clients joined him. Every single one of those 31 major corporate clients signed exclusive operational management contracts with my new independent logistics firm. Over $40 million in recurring annual business moved directly into my hands. With those accounts secured, I rented a beautiful light-filled office space downtown. I immediately hired back the 4 experienced operational managers whom Mason had foolishly fired during his first week as vice president. I gave them generous salaries, full health benefits, flexible working hours, and the complete respect they deserved. We did not use cold, broken automated portals or offshore ticketing systems. We built our new company on personal trust, deep operational expertise, and relentless dedication to our clients. The consequences for Kodiak Logistics were swift and brutal. Without 78% of its annual revenue, the company suffered a catastrophic financial collapse. Within 3 months, Kodiak's stock price plummeted by over 80%. The board of directors held a tense, bitter emergency meeting and fired CEO Gerald Thorne in utter disgrace, stripping him of his severance package and executive stock options. As for Mason Thorne, his brief corporate career was permanently over. The story of his hilarious, arrogant failure circulated throughout the logistics industry like wildfire. No reputable firm would ever hire a man whose complete incompetence had destroyed an empire in less than 1 business day. He was permanently blacklisted from executive logistics management worldwide. Today, I sit at my large executive desk in my bright, quiet office. Through the glass walls, I see my team laughing, collaborating, and managing shipments smoothly across the globe. My house is fully paid off, my children are thriving, and my business is growing faster than ever before. Looking back on my journey, I realize that the best revenge is never about shouting, making scenes, or getting angry. It is about knowing your true value and letting arrogant people discover what happens when you stop carrying their weight. When someone disrespects your work, humiliates your loyalty, and claims they can easily replace you, do not fight them. Step aside quietly, smile politely, and let reality teach them the lesson they deserve. They will tear down their own castles brick by brick while convinced they are building a palace. And when the dust finally settles, you will be standing in a life you built with your own hands, surrounded by true peace, undisputed success, and freedom.